Palani, Mohan, Prasad, thank you for that concise overview on how businesses can move on to the Oracle Cloud. Now, if you'd like to learn more about Oracle Cloud or about the tech that you heard here today, you can head down to the stalls and meet our partners, fill in some feedback forms, and some great prizes coming your way as well. And with that, we come to the final session of the day. Blair Lyon, the Vice President for Cloud Experience, Linode, has connected in, and he's joining in from the cloud. Literally speaking, it looks like he is in the Linode server room, and if I'm guessing that right. And Rahul Neel Mani, our co-founder and editor of Greyhead Media, is leading this chat. Over to you, Rahul.
Well, thank you, Ashwin, once again, and good evening to all the delegates and friends here. I hope it's going good so far for all of you. Now, here is yet another very interesting session for you where we talk about cloud computing outside the usual suspects. Now, before I bring in my guest to have a conversation with me, let me set up a small background. Cloud market has shown tremendous growth in recent years. The market of cloud computing has boomed exceptionally and has started growing with covering a large area of complex technologies, engineering, products, and customer services. Organizations use cloud services from various cloud service providers, the cloud vendors, for a multitude of reasons, be it machine learning, artificial intelligence, data analytics, cloud native development, application migration, and many more. However, if we see the market players, now that's very important here. Then among AWS, Microsoft Azure, Google Cloud Platform together hold roughly 61% of this market. Pardon me if my calculations are a little haywire. Now, if we add IBM, Alibaba, Oracle, Salesforce, and Tencent to it, it'll be another 17 to 18%, leaving the rest of the cloud players with just 20% odd market share. Now, this 20% is not insignificant. And we are seeing a good growth of the alternative cloud players offering inexpensive yet very effective and valuable services to their customers. This includes hybrid open cloud. Now, to discuss the merits and innovations offered by this alternate set of cloud providers, we have with us today Blair Lyon. Blair is the Vice President of Cloud Experience at Lenode. Welcome to the Cloud Summit, Blair. How are you doing?
I'm doing great. Thank you very much for having me.
Wonderful. So, Blair, in the beginning, tell us about yourself and a little bit about Linode.
Oh, sure. So again, my name is Blair Lyon. I'm Vice President of Cloud Experience here at Linode. And Linode, as you mentioned, is one of these new category of alternative cloud provider. So although Linode has been around since 2003, we actually launched our public cloud 3 years even before AWS launched their cloud. Only until recently, I would say, in the last 2 or 3 years, has Linode and other alternative cloud providers like a DigitalOcean or an OVH been kind of like a viable alternative option to the enterprise kind of hyperscalers like an AWS or Google Cloud. And that's a really exciting thing because this market needs choice. It needs to grow. It needs to have innovation and options. And as you said, alternative cloud providers can fit into a nice niche where we can provide dramatically lower cost, typically much, much better customer service, and equal, if not better, price performance.
No, absolutely. And I'm very intrigued to have this conversation with you because I personally am not a great fan of the cartel of the cloud service providers that has been created willingly or unwillingly. So let me begin the conversation. After the widespread pandemic and an unprecedented global halt, cloud was perhaps the only piece in technology stack that businesses didn't hesitate or think twice to invest in. Now, what's your outlook for the future of cloud? Where will the momentum shift from cloud as simply a technology piece to cloud as a business innovation?
I mean, I would say that cloud is already a business innovation. I mean, we've jumped ahead 10 years in just the last two. Our digital transformation projects and on-premise to the cloud accelerated in a way we didn't really think was possible in such a short time. And in this new age of remote work and this kind of online everywhere and virtualized business, the cloud has truly become the underlying infrastructure of almost everything we do at work and in our personal lives. So I guess what's the future of the cloud? Well, yes, I mean, cloud will continue to be supremely important, but it will also become more commoditized and democratized. And what I mean by that is that the features of the cloud, so those core things, compute, networking, and storage, will become common building blocks that can easily be mixed and matched when and where needed. And the exciting innovations, I believe, are really going to come from the open source and those third-party tools that sit between our applications and these kind of core cloud primitives. And best of all, those proprietary frameworks and those walled gardens of the hyperscalers like AWS will, in my mind, continue to diminish, and the power will further shift in favor of the developer, which I think is a good thing.
Interesting. So can we meander a little bit and talk about some of these business innovations that are already taking place using the elasticity and agility of cloud?
Sure. I mean, one of the things that we hear the most is questions around solutioning and cloud architecture and design. So what people are trying to figure out is, I kind of know already sort of how I would build this, let's say on AWS using their proprietary tools and frameworks. And what they really want to know is, how can I do that similar capability, but with all the benefits of kind of having more ownership and using open source tools and other third-party tools that I have greater control over and often direct ownership over, and using alternative cloud providers or a combination of cloud providers. And one of the things that I see is that, I mean, the idea of virtualization of machines, of computers that are, on a rack in a data center, I mean, that is a relatively commoditized capability. And it's still an amazing feat to have the scaling and have all of the redundancy and so on. But for the user, that service is relatively commoditized. And so what they're finding is, whether you're doing security services or you're doing monitoring or you're doing streaming or AI or machine learning, is that there's so many amazing new capabilities that are out there that you can use from the open source world and from some of these other independent third-party tools that really give you all of the flexibility and power that maybe you would have if you went all in on one large tech provider. But you can have all the flexibility to kind of plug and play those pieces as you want. You're not going to kind of get caught or painted into a corner as you develop your applications. And that's exciting. And I'm even hearing that from our venture capital partners, where they're saying, they're coaching their companies to avoid sort of the lure of free credits, let's say, from their cloud provider, and try and look for ways to make things more portable, make things more flexible, so that they can have greater flexibility as their business expands.
Great. Blair, if we look at the hyperscale public cloud market, it makes up a significant majority of public cloud market revenue. If we look at the future cloud market, an estimated about $850 billion will be spent on cloud, which will be about 16% of the global IT spend. And the revenue of the cloud titans or the top cloud service providers, which is AWS, Azure, and GCP, will be slightly around $303 billion, which is still a very sizable market size. Now, while we can't call it monopolistic, in some way, however, most customers gravitate towards these CSPs. Now, how does this monopoly impact the users and the enterprises? Why is it bad?
I mean, I would say that, would any of us say that one cloud to rule them all is a good thing? I don't think so, right? So I look at it as the 2010 decade was all about standardizing on one cloud platform, which of course greatly benefited the large hyperscalers like AWS. And that was great. But the 2020 decade, though, is about finding the right solution that fits your needs, not a one size fits all. So concepts like I discussed before, portability is a huge topic, ownership, cost optimization, of course, security, transparency into their stack are what I'm hearing from our customers. So smart developers realize that there are incredible benefits to multi-cloud strategies or embracing open source tools in opposition to those locked-in services and avoiding those conflicts with tech providers that turn out to be, as sometimes your competition, right? But the challenge, of course, is that AWS, Azure, and GCP have momentum. Yeah. And they also have basic human behavior helping sustain their dominance. So this year we conducted a global developer survey where we explored the concept of trust with the mega cloud providers. Mm-hmm. And what was revealed was that while developers know that these massive tech companies may not provide the best service, or they may potentially deliver a surprise bill that they weren't expecting, or even in some cases resell their data without their permission, they will continue to work with them because it's what they know. Status quo is comfortable for us humans. That is, until it's not. And what the data found was that for those developers who have experienced directly the negative effects of this monopoly that you mentioned, well, they're different. And they are willing to explore other cloud options. And that, again, is a very good thing.
Now, you touched upon a very interesting aspect, this whole developer ecosystem and how these hyperscalers have actually amassed a huge amount of developer community across the world and kind of cobweb them around their solutions and creating more solutions on their platforms. So when you say that the developers will understand the importance of other cloud ecosystems, other cloud platforms, how is that happening? I mean, that has to happen very quickly.
Yeah, I mean, it's like I said, it's challenging to fight the status quo. And if I'm used to a particular piece of software, a particular platform, and I know how to use it, then I will probably continue to use it until there's some real reason to change. Especially when you're talking about cloud infrastructure. I mean, this is not an easy thing. If you already have your application built, on a particular provider, just to migrate to something else. So that tends to be a big decision if you want to do that. So we're seeing is people not necessarily migrating, but then looking at their next new application, or maybe they're doing pen testing, or maybe they're doing some other side project, or they're doing some sort of CI/CD environment. That's where they're bringing in these alternative cloud providers and testing them and giving them a try. But like I said before, if you're comfortable with what you know, I can't convince you to necessarily change. But the good news is that it's kind of free to change. It's free to try these things. And if you think that there may be a fit with one of these alternative cloud providers, it's worth giving a try.
Also, very impromptu question that I have running across all over my mind is, does it not cause a cloud sprawl, multi-cloud environments, which again creates more complexity within an organization, both about manageability, interoperability, and other sorts of things?
Well, I think that was the case, right? Just a couple of years ago, is that to do a multi-cloud configuration, even if you were doing it, there's many ways to define multi-cloud, but let's just say I'm going to have compute over here, I'm going to have my storage over here. Just to do that a few years ago was very difficult. But today with products like Terraform and other sorts of integration tools, and also some standardization of these core cloud components, it's way easier. I would say right now, in terms of our business audience, because Linode sells to both consumer developers as well as small to mid-sized and enterprise businesses. But for our business customers, I would say we're about 60% to 65% are running Linode in some sort of multi-cloud capacity. And that's really exciting. So yes, it may take a little bit more work, but the tooling is getting easier and easier every day. And then cloud providers like Linode, who embrace open source, who embrace portability, who embrace the ability to be cloud agnostic, are making it that much easier. So I think every day we're seeing that sort of barrier to entry diminishing, especially if you're doing net new projects.
So another very impromptu question. What's the difference between when when a usual cloud provider like AWS or GCP or Azure refers to open source, vis-a-vis Linode referring to open source?
Well, one of the things that you can obviously see it in the way that Google Cloud and even now Azure does in embracing Linux, which I know they didn't want to do, but they've been kind of forced to and pulled through by the market, is that I think we all know that there's a lot of ulterior motives that go on inside of an Azure or a Google Cloud or an AWS. They have all these other ancillary businesses that report to their shareholders and so on. And when they look at open source, yes, they want it to succeed, but only as long as it's not going to affect their profits. Whereas Linode or other alternative cloud providers, all that we do is cloud computing. We don't have other ancillary businesses. What we want is the ecosystem to thrive, to embrace choice. We don't want to own the whole market. None of us are going to have hundreds and hundreds of services. We're only going to have the core 20 or 25 services that you need as those building blocks that I talked about. And then we want the other rest of all of the things that you need to really come from those open source and third-party tool providers. And that is going to allow us to have faster innovation. It's going to democratize the capability. It's going to lower the cost for people to innovate. I mean, that's most innovation that I see that I'm excited about comes from not the big giant companies with the billions of dollars, but typically from these small individuals and small teams that are ideating and creating the next new thing. And that's what I think the world needs to continue to foster.
No, absolutely. I don't disagree with you at all when you talk about the remarkable innovations coming from niche and smaller players. Larger players have a bogey and so to say, that they do create extensions. They do create more features, but the net new innovations are really in the lower end of the spectrum. So Blair, while these hyperscalers have developed deep inroads into the market, and you yourself acknowledge that, there's still room for alternative cloud providers to add value as enterprises increasingly adopt multi-cloud strategy, as we just discussed. And especially the mid-market and smaller companies want to opt for less of vendor lock-ins and flexibility. So how do you see this? How do you see this momentum?
Well, I look at it as the good news is that this new category of alternative cloud providers now exists, which gives us more choice. And often a choice that is simpler, more affordable, and often a more accessible form of cloud computing. So Linode and the other cloud providers, let's say like a DigitalOcean or an OVH, have been around for a while. We're 2003, I think OVH is like 99 or 2000. DigitalOcean is about 10 years old or 11. And while we've been around for a while, it's really only until recently have we sort of collectively had the necessary products, services, and the global network to be a viable alternative, like I talked about, especially for that 80 to 90% of those standard workloads. And then for small to mid-sized businesses, the benefits of alternative cloud providers are really even stronger. So this ease of use, the flat predictable pricing, the multi-cloud ready, the integrations with those third-party tools like Terraform that I mentioned are all driving developers to explore these alternative infrastructure providers, which we're excited about and we're going to continue to advocate for.
Exciting. So can these alternative cloud service providers offer a similar grade of scale and quality of infrastructure needed for most enterprise workloads, including the mission critical ones? And if yes, then how?
Well, I think to qualify as an alternative cloud provider, you need to have those enterprise ready features and capabilities. And so that's really what we've been focused on for the last 2 to 4 years, is sort of checking those boxes on those other things that people would need to be a viable alternative. So things like, of course, like 4.9 uptime SLAs. You need to have 24/7 global support. You need to have enterprise class hardware that delivers equal, if not better performance than the big guys. You need to have a global network of data centers everywhere around the world, and the necessary cloud primitives that people need, like Kubernetes and DDoS protection, cloud GPUs, to satisfy most workloads. So alternative cloud providers are a great fit for many enterprise needs, but you still may need that massive scale or specialized tooling that AWS can provide. But even if that's the case, what we're seeing is alternative cloud providers can still be a great multi-cloud option. At Linode, we've conducted several independent performance benchmarks for our compute and storage products against the large hyperscalers and our alternative cloud peers. And what was really cool is what we found is that Linode and the other alternative providers as well offer dramatically better price performance than the big guys. But again, it's all about what's the best fit for you. So the good news, like I said before, is that it's free to test drive these services like Linode to see for yourself.
Okay, so before I ask my concluding question, I would ask you to give me kind of a roadmap for the cloud users, the enterprises, especially in this era where things were massively disrupted and the CXOs were running helter-skelter to scale up, to reach out to their customers, and there were very limited options available because they were not prepared for it. So what should be a conducive cloud strategy that these CXOs should look for and work upon?
I mean, what we saw in our research this year was that, of course, the adoption or interest in developing strategies around multi-cloud are pervasive now with our customers, and we're seeing with even our non-customers from small to mid-sized businesses, enterprises, really around the world. So I think what people realize is they can't count on any one strategy. They have to have flexibility, they have to have redundancy, they have to have the ability to move their infrastructure around if they need to, and they need to be able to potentially scale in ways that they didn't think was possible. Like before, maybe they were, let's move from on-prem as much into the cloud, and now they're seeing that they have specialized either security or performance requirements to kind of shift back to a hybrid mode, or even bring more things into on-prem. So you don't know which way the wind's going to blow. So you have to be able to have the flexibility in your tooling so that you're not sort of like stuck in these kind of really hard to move frameworks. And so I think that's, like I said, this concept of portability, and in that context, of course, the multi-cloud, hybrid cloud movement, but the portability is what people are trying to figure out right now. How can I be as flexible as possible? Yes, I know that even if I'm on AWS, they have great security and they have great performance and redundancy, but they go down too, and they have security issues too. So I can't be single threaded through any one provider or any one technology. I have to be able to be quickly adaptable and agile because we don't know what the future is going to hold.
Exactly. So coming on to the last point, which you have answered in different questions which I asked you earlier. However, just to conclude, how does Linode as an open cloud provider differentiate itself from these hyperscalers that we are talking about, and what are the distinct advantages that it offers?
Yeah, I mean, before I answer that, I'll remind everybody that the cloud, to a certain degree, is relatively commoditized. So this illusion that I can only work, let's say, with an AWS to be able to run my small application in the cloud is not real. So remember that this capability is becoming more and more commoditized. But where Linode and I would say the other alternative cloud providers differentiate ourselves from those big providers is primarily around simplicity of really everything. Simplicity in how you buy it, how you engage with the platform, how you deploy content, how you interact with our cloud primitives. And then, of course, the predictable pricing. I mean, it's the flat pricing across every data center around the world, whether you're running in Mumbai, India, or you're running in New York City, USA, you're going to pay the same amount, same flat fee, no surprises. And then, of course, the personalized customer experience. I mean, this is one of the things that big tech has always driven us towards, is completely self-service. You can't call anybody, you can't email anybody, especially if you're not spending at least $1 million a month. You're not going to get anybody on the phone. Whereas alternative cloud providers like Linode, we have 100% human, telephone support free for every user. We have no tiered support. Whoever you talk to is going to be able to be an actual Linux administrator who can solve your problem. So that level of support is just unheard of in the big cloud tech. And we also embrace things like I mentioned before, cloud agnostic, making your workloads portable, advocating for open source solutions over those proprietary frameworks whenever and wherever possible. I mean, keep in mind that Linode only provides cloud computing services. We don't sell groceries. We don't own social media companies. We don't have aspirations, to launch rockets to the moon. We are authentic, independent. We're profitable 18 years in a row. We have been a trusted partner for developers for nearly 2 decades. Our mission is to accelerate innovation by making cloud computing simple, affordable, and accessible to everyone, not just the rich and powerful. If you believe in this alternative cloud movement that we've articulated, then Linode is a great place to start.
I really like the last part of your answer. Out of curiosity, I will ask one last question. This whole hype about workloads being shifted to the cloud and on-prem actually vanishing in the near future or maybe in a midterm future. How do you assess this? Please give me an answer to this.
I don't think so. I think and the world is circular, right? We initially went from all kind of bare metal to then we pushed things into the cloud. Now we're seeing sort of this curve back into bare metal servers and to hybrid cloud configurations. Here at Linode, we're launching our virtualized bare metal capability, and allowing these sort of VPC environments. So again, it's all about what is the right combination for what you need. If you have special security or performance requirements, running things yourself may be the best way to go, and then using the cloud for that for the scale. So I don't think there is a one size fits all. And that's what's really exciting, is that you can orchestrate. The orchestrating tools now allow you to go across your own co-location or on-prem capabilities and what's going on in the cloud in a really elegant way. And that's just going to get easier. And that's really exciting.
No, I was actually expecting this kind of very candid answer from you, because when you talk to hyperscalers, they would profess, and it's a huge propaganda going in favor of everything moving to the cloud. And when I talk to the users, then there is a very different notion that I get, that no, we are very cautious in terms of our cloud adoption. Yes, it is growing, but it is not growing at the speed which is talked about. Yep. So excellent talking to you, Blair, and it was a pleasure. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you very much.
Over to you, Ashwin.
Thanks, Rahul. Thanks, Blair. That is a very, very cool backdrop. And with that, we come to the end of day 1 of the India Cloud Summit 21. And what a day it has been. 16 sessions, nearly 30 speakers. And turns out this is just the day 1. Tomorrow, we are joining you back at 10 a.m. to dive back into the cloud and discover how the innovators are pushing the envelope of innovation. A big thank you to our presenting partners, Oracle and Airtel Business, co-presenting partners, Dell Technology and VMware, and our gold partners, Cisco Meraki, McAfee Inspira, MongoDB, Infrabeat, Google Cloud, Veeam, and F5. Now, the buzz is alive and will continue on the hashtag ICS21, and we'll catch you there through the evening. So, till tomorrow, this is me, Ashwin Raghunath, signing off for day 1 of the India Cloud Summit 21. Take care and stay safe.